One Region is a planning initiative which is creating financial opportunities for all in this region through talent, competitiveness, infrastructure, and other assets. Today, I talk one-on-one with the chair of One Region, Shawn Saulsberry, for this edition of Quintin's Close-Ups. And if you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel and like Quintin's Close-Ups on Facebook. Shawn Saulsberry, welcome to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're very welcome. You know, you are the chair of One Region, and it's obviously an organization which the Charleston Metro Chamber of Commerce and the Charleston Regional Development Alliance launched One Region, which is a planning initiative that will create a multi-year economic development, global competitive strategy for the three county regions here in the Low Country, Berkeley, Charleston, and Dorchester, of course. And I know that the goal of this strategy is to work collaboratively as a region to further advance the economy through advancements in talent, infrastructure, and other assets characteristics of a global competitive metro, and investment in the community for a robust and stable economy for many years to come. As I mentioned, you are the chair of One Region. What's new? What's now with this initiative?
Well, this initiative has really been going on basically for the past 25 years. It's been an evolution over time. And there have been, other plans that have been put forward that have caused us to make advancements already. But now we're at this juncture today because we've done a lot of research, we've done a lot of studying, we've talked to the community. And so the action areas that you mentioned are those that are stemming from surveys and town hall sessions held within the community. So now that we understand what we need to do, my goal as chair in my term is to drive action around these action areas.
Wow. And you mentioned the 25 years from say that time to right now, Shawn. What is the biggest difference about One Region?
I think the biggest difference is, two things. It's a collaborative effort. It's a regional effort. So we're partnering with the Charleston Chamber of Commerce, the CRDA, and the BCD COG as our joint venture partners, if you will. And so as we work together as a team collaboratively, no one is really necessarily owning this. So it's not like the chamber is saying we're running the show, or the CRDA or the BCD COG. Nobody's really taking that type of ownership. It's really a collaborative effort, and we're working together. We also do have an advisory committee that we report out to once a quarter. So that consists of over 70 members, and that's, several businesses, community leaders, so on and so forth. So I think the difference about this initiative is really the collaboration at the top of the house, as well as we drive execution in working with the advisory committee.
With this initiative, Shawn, who else do you want to collaborate with to make certain these initiatives are carried out?
Whom else? Really, anyone who's interested in, participating or having a voice in what we're doing, they are certainly welcome to do that. So if there's interest in, any of the action areas or any one of our themes, they are more than happy. You can send an email to me, or you just send an email to me, and I'll find a way to get you involved.
You talk about those themes, Shawn. Which one of those themes are really popular with this initiative right now?
There are two themes. There's one around equity and the other around economic mobility. I think they're both equally popular. So as we look at the 6 action areas that we're focusing on, we're always asking the question, is this equitable, or does this provide economic mobility? So for instance, when we're talking about an action area like affordability, we are coming up with solutions, but as we come up with those solutions, we're asking that question. Is it equitable? Does it provide economic mobility? We're doing the same thing for infrastructure, for talent, for all of the other action areas. These are themes that resonated across all of the action areas when we talk to the community.
And okay, I want to ask you this too, Shawn, and this might be a silly question, but how did One Region and economic mobility meet?
Well, I think, one thing that we really, really wanted to do was listen to the community.
Sure.
So as we did our surveys and asking about things that could be improved in the community, as we did our little town hall sessions and talked to, different community members, this theme of equity just kept coming up over and over and over again. Now, we could have made it, just an action area where, there's a, keen focus on equity just, in that space. But what we decided to do was make it a broad reaching theme across all of the action areas. So once we got that feedback from the community through surveys and town hall meetings, it just became very apparent to us that equity and economic mobility were themes that we needed to investigate across all the action areas.
What is the state of equity and economic mobility in this region?
Well, as you know, we've made a lot of progress, but there's always room for improvement. So we do have a lead agent. We do have lead agents who are focusing on this particular area for equity and economic mobility. So right now, what we're doing, Quintin, is taking a current state assessment of where we stand. Now, once we have that in place, that'll at least give us an understanding of, the type of improvements we need to make. What we're also introducing are some key metrics. So we're trying to introduce baseline metrics that will help us measure this, get a current state snapshot, and as we continue to execute, we'll begin to understand how we're improving on that particular metric.
What is that current snapshot, Shawn?
Well, as I work with my lead agent, we're basically assessing that right now. Okay. And the way we're going to look at it, Quintin, is just to understand overall from an equity and a DEI perspective, where do we stand with regards to equity and affordability and entrepreneurship and innovation and infrastructure and talent, so on and so forth. So we do have a lead agent who's looking at equity as a theme, and that person will partner with the other lead agents who are looking at the other action areas as well.
Because of COVID, Shawn, what other themes have actually creeped into this initiative?
Well, part of One Region and part of our journey, we had a pretty big role to play as COVID was onset. And so part of One Region was looking at, okay, how do we get back? How do we come back from COVID, and how do we find a strong way back? So that was basically our charge as we went through COVID. Now that we've come out of COVID, I think the theme of really understanding affordability in the region, of course, housing is a really big topic that we have to constantly look at. And as you think about, equity at large, so I think we began to see some disparities when it came to equity as a result of COVID. So these are things that we really, really want to pay attention to as we execute with One Region.
What are those hidden inequities?
Well, I think we began to see some of the healthcare inequities that were made apparent. One of our, action areas actually deals with infrastructure in the realm of broadband access. So we clearly saw that, some people had access, some people didn't, especially as we went virtual as a country, basically. And not having broadband access is a big deal. So those are two specific areas that are part of our plan to address.
And do you see that more when it comes to this region, more rural or urban?
You'll definitely see that, the further out you go from a metropolitan area, at times you will see less and less broadband access. So it is certainly something we're paying attention to. We're partnering with Tri-County Cradle to Career, who is the lead agent looking at broadband access. And I also understand that there's a statewide initiative as well that's happening to look at broadband access, and One Region is a stakeholder in that initiative also.
And I want to get back to that in just a second, Shawn, but I know as we sit here right now, what is the financial health of this region?
The financial health of the region? That's a really good question. I think that, when we think about all of the commerce that happens here, all of the new business growth that continues to happen here in Charleston, it's interesting to watch. It's quite phenomenal. When we think about things like advanced manufacturing, warehousing, mobility. We continue to grow. Our airport continues to grow, so that's also a good sign. And of course, the port is always growing and doing wonderful, wonderful things. So, I mean, I think by and large, the economy in and of itself continues to grow. I know some areas where we're trying to really make strides. Definitely in the healthcare space, as we're looking to create that innovative center for healthcare through efforts like SC Bio and the like. And I also know that infrastructure is going to be a big part of this. So you bring more business, you're bringing more people. People need to be able to move around efficiently. So as we look at the bus line and we look at other things that are coming, those things are really, really good signs for our economy.
So, what public transportation initiatives would be ideal or actually meet your initiative?
As we work with the BCD COG, specifically in infrastructure, the bus line is going to be a major part of that. Just making sure that folks have direct access from some of the the outlying areas into the city is going to be very, very important. And we're partnering hand in hand with the BCD COG on that initiative.
And going back earlier, obviously, when you talk about commerce in this region, which is huge, as you know, you talk about the airport, the port, and all of these other businesses coming here. Which jobs are the top jobs right now that are attracting people to Charleston?
No, believe it or not, from my vantage point, I see a lot going on with advanced manufacturing. So a lot of the warehousing and manufacturing companies are definitely finding a home in Charleston. And believe it or not, I mean, I think it's a well hidden secret, perhaps, but there's a huge technology sector here in Charleston as well. A lot of smaller companies that are growing. We have some pretty large companies and medium-sized companies also. So technology is a big attraction here for Charleston.
Yes, sir. And so, what demographic is experiencing economic mobility the best in this region?
I would say if I had to qualify it as a demographic, I guess I would say maybe folks more so along in the professional services realm. So, the ability to move around from job to job within the area, it's a little bit easier, I think, with some professions as opposed to others. Our goal is just to make sure that we have enough diversity with regard to employment to make sure that everyone has that opportunity to move around from job to job, and also that no one gets stagnant along that economic mobility path. So you don't want to find yourself to say, I'm in a certain profession and I'm going to tap out at $80,000 and that's the most I'll ever be able to make. We want to create options and some variation in jobs and types of jobs, even in some cases finding ways to help folks, transition their skills and sharpen their skills for other careers as well. So economic mobility, I think it's going to vary based on the profession, but our goal is just to make it, a lot easier to move around and a lot more promising for folks to continue along that economic growth path.
And this is probably buried. It shouldn't be buried down in my questions, but I'm going to bring it to the top right now.
Yes.
But how diverse is that talent pool?
The talent pool in and of itself, a lot of companies here in Charleston and, and many, many different areas are really focusing on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And, there's a focus there because, in the past, there has been a problem. And so now, a lot of companies are focusing on not just looking at, the lower levels of the organization, but also looking at the organization from top down. So I think the goal at the end of the day is to make equity look more like a cylinder as opposed to a triangle. So with that cylinder model, as you get higher and higher in the organization, the percentage of diversity remains the same or gets better. With a triangle model, you have more folks at the lower tier of the organization, and maybe you have 50% diversity there at the lowest areas of the organization. But as you climb to the top into executive leadership, equity might look like 2%. So we're trying to, find a way to create opportunities for all at every levels of their organizations.
What other models should be used ideally to make certain that there is diversity at the top?
Well, the cool thing that we do through the CRDA and even through the chamber, they're always looking at different models from different cities, always making field trips, if you will, to different cities to learn more. So I think there's a lot of learning happening based on those visits and some of the insights we get from other cities. And I would also say, there are some really, really special DEI leaders here in Charleston who have been very, very helpful in bringing the latest and greatest to us with regards to, the most recent.
Yes, sir. Oh, yeah. Oh,
Hey,
yeah. And the latest, greatest. Yeah. Talk to me about that.
well, so you'll see that, we have moved from, just talking about equity in general, because, equity can mean different things to different people in different organizations. Now we're talking a little more about like diversity. So you want to look different, right? Equity is more focused on the right pay. You want to pay people the same way across the board. And we're now talking about inclusion. So it's not just looking good on the outside from a diversity perspective. It's not just paying people right, but are they also included in the innovation cycles of the company, in the key roles of the company? Are they included in the strategy of the companies? So really taking those of diverse background and really integrate them deeply into the company to make sure that their contributions rise to the top. And a lot of research already shows the best solutions come from diverse groups. And we're also looking, there's DEI, but where I work, we also talk about belonging. So there's DEI, and there's so many acronyms out there, but then there's this idea of belonging, and it's no longer saying asking the question every day, do I, is this my company? Do I have to prove myself over and over again? It's having a sense of, wait, I am part of this company. I do belong here. My company's got my back no matter what I'm going through. And so when you belong somewhere, there's a different level of confidence. There's a different level of investment. There's a different level of ingenuity that happens. So when we talk about things like quiet quitting and things of that sort, but when you belong to an organization, that's just quite different. So, I mean, so many things are happening with regard to diversity and equity. I'm just giving you one example.
Yes, sir. So locally, what other investments are being made to make certain, say, for instance, that most people get upward economic mobility?
Well, again, this goes all the way back to, the various corporations that are doing great work and making sure that their workforce is diverse. You can see a lot of the recruitment efforts that happen through the CRDA and trying to bring local talent or bring more talent into the Charleston area. I can highlight one example that I know of personally. I'm also I sit on the board of Metanoia as the board chair. And so one thing that they're doing is along the Reynolds Avenue corridor, really trying to reserve that area and recruit minority business leaders to start businesses back in that space to, in essence, revive Reynolds Avenue back to what it used to be in the 80s. So that's just one example of one organization that's doing great work along those lines.
It's 180's approach, 180, One Region's approach to engaging and convening business owners, financial institutions, and business support organizations to better understand the unique needs of the region's small business ecosystem.
Well, a lot of that is going to come through participants in our advisory committee. So we invite all businesses to come out and be a part of that, because as we present the strategy on a quarterly basis, we're coming in presenting results. We're showing the movement that we're making. We're showing the improvements that that have happened within a quarter. And really, it's a good place to get feedback. It's a great place to get input from anyone who wants to participate to understand and make sure that we're making the necessary progress with regard to their business. I remember coming out of our last committee meeting, there was someone who was present who highlighted something that was a bit of a gap for us. And that's making sure that as we go about things like global fluency, that we're considering those who are not from the United States. We're considering, maybe their language and their background as we make progress with this initiative. So again, that committee is so valuable because it highlights things that sometimes we're not looking at. So as the best way to stay updated and to understand where we're going would be, maybe you want to be a part of the advisory committee. That's cool. Because send me an email. I'll find a way to get you involved, to get you integrated. Or we will have an annual report here next year that will go out and kind of highlight all the things that we're doing and the direction we're taking as well. So if nothing else, send me an email, ask me, say, hey, Shawn, what's going on with One Region? I will give you the debrief, I promise.
And I hope to get you back on Quintin's close-ups when that annual report comes out. But
sure,
tell me, what are the other gaps that you see on the horizon as far as economic mobility in this region?
Well, I think, more than anything, as new companies are coming that are requiring different skill sets. Right. It's really being keen on, how do we retool the workforce with different skills to meet the challenges of new businesses that are coming to town. So, I see that present. But, at the end of the day, some of the same things that we've dealt with for a long time are still prevalent. So making sure when it comes to talent, making sure that education is fair, that opportunities to grow are fair and equitable for everyone, as well as at the end of the day, taking a deep look as organizations will share to really understand their DEI profile.
And what are those typical DIA profiles that you see on from your particular vantage point?
Well, it's just it's like we discussed before. It's looking at organizations and just making sure that there's representation at all levels of the organization. And again, it's not just racial. It's it's gender, all sorts of classifications, just to make sure that hey, you're bringing the best and brightest and the most diverse to the table, especially at the highest levels of the organization. Now, as a body, One Region really can't control or dictate what an organization does, but at the same time, we can at least provide some best practices from our vantage point, and hopefully, folks will clue into that and put that into operation.
And going back to what you said earlier about the businesses, what exactly are those new challenges right now with the new businesses coming to this region?
Well, again, from my vantage point, some of the things, I think the biggest thing is just making sure that when a new company comes to Charleston, that we have the talent available for them to make use of. And sometimes, you may see or hear of certain companies who have actually left Charleston because of a lack of availability of talent. So we want to make sure that as new companies come, that we have the talent and the workforce here to source them, so that they have what they need to operate well and to operate locally. The other thing we don't want is for a company to come here locally, but then find talent and source talent outside of our region.
Mm.
As much as possible, we want to tap the talent that's here and make sure that they're ready. And of course, that's going to bring growth outside of the region, and that's fine. But as long as we're looking here first, instead of looking elsewhere first.
Well, how many of those businesses have actually looked elsewhere versus Charleston?
Well, it's hard for me to say specifically, but I mean, I think we have seen examples of certain companies who maybe have had a good start here, and they grow and they grow, and somehow they outgrow the resources that are available here in Charleston, and then they relocate. Or, I mean, I think the biggest thing, Quintin, is getting the message out, because we know why people want to come to Charleston, right? People talk about hotels, restaurant, tourism. It's a great place. It's a great place to vacation. But we also want to send the message that beyond just coming here and having a good time, that this is a great place to live, and it's a great place to work. So we're really trying to get that message out there.
Yes, sir. And I hate to be redundant, Shawn, but what in your mind is actually limiting economic mobility in this region?
It's some of the stuff we talked about before. So economic mobility is really more or less about, okay, if I, as an African American male, start in a career, I have a computer science background. So if I take a technology job, let's just say I'm starting off, I don't know, 40,000 a year. It's really taking a look and following that path, right? Following the path of mobility from an economic perspective throughout my career. So am I going to tap out in this area with the jobs that are available to me at 70,000? Where's that ceiling, right? How am I going to move from, the 40, the 70 to the, 6-figure job in this space? Or, you take my example. Upon graduating from the University of South Carolina, I had 2 job offers. I had one to work at a local, a public utility here in the region, but then I also had an offer in Charlotte, North Carolina. I took a good look at where things were at that time, and this was back in 1995.
Okay.
I took a good look at, I was thinking to myself, well, if I get a job, I know I'm gonna have to get another eventually. So how am I gonna move around? How am I gonna have that type of mobility? I didn't see that here in Charleston at the time, which is why I took the job in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I've had a long career there. Had a long career there for 24 years. I moved all around. I moved up. I moved sideways. I moved everywhere you could imagine. But then as I was doing that, I kept an eye on Charleston. And I saw the growth and I saw the pattern here, which is why I moved back to do that. But, someone shouldn't have to do that. We want our people to be able to come here and stay here and have that mobility without having to go elsewhere and maybe come back.
And I visited Charlotte for the first time last August and loved that city. But
Yeah.
This is a basic question, but how many of those local municipalities, that is, have actually incorporated economic mobility into their strategic plans, that is?
Well, a lot of folks have, believe it or not. A lot of folks are thinking about, a lot of companies are really thinking about not just, having a hire. It's also thinking about, okay, sure, we can get them hired, but how do we get them to stay? And part of that staying, especially with the advent of virtual working, not having to, be in a certain place in order to work, the competitiveness from, a salary perspective is pretty steep. So a lot of companies are thinking more and more about, not just, what the rate might bring here in Charleston, but what is the national rate? What is it going to take to keep that person here with this company instead of having them jump to another place? So economic mobility is on the mind of a lot of corporations. And it's, with the advent of virtual working, it's a heck of a lot more challenging as well.
So what is the national rate versus this region's rate?
Well, that's going to vary, Quintin. It really depends on the type of job. You will find that Charleston might be competitive in certain industries, more competitive than the national rate, and vice versa. It really depends, right? So, and we do some modeling, and I know the chamber has done some modeling and looking at different cities. I think a sister city to ours might be like in Austin, Texas, for example. So we take a look at cities that are similar to ours and try to make sure that we're kind of going along the same path.
Are you going along that same path right now?
Well, I mean, like, you take a city like Austin. I mean, they can look at us and see areas where they're not doing so great and vice versa. So I think every city we continue to learn from the other. But I think at the end of the day, the goal is really, really to understand, and this is what One Region does very well. Okay, what is going on? What's going well? We have a pretty good pulse of that, and our action areas pretty much cover that. But within each action area, there is room for improvement, and that's what we're looking for. We're looking for ways to improve, ways to create opportunities for all, and we want to keep in mind as we execute those two major themes. Whatever we do, it's going to be equitable. Whatever we do, it's going to provide economic mobility.
Shawn Saulsberry with One Region. Thank you so much for your time. And again, welcome to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, that was great. Thank you so much.
Man, you are sharp. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you.